Hey folks, this is Waylon Lewis with my second conversation of the day. This one I'm very excited about. I'm here with Carrie Kennedy.
Hi Waylon, thanks so much for having me. Yeah. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm very excited and humbled, so thank you for coming. So what are you doing? Why am I talking with you? You're doing something right now.
Well, I'm running for governor of Colorado.
It's kind of a big deal.
It's an incredible privilege.
Yeah.
And I've been a part of the leadership team here in Colorado for a long time, including serving as the state treasurer here. Also served as the chief financial officer for the city of Denver, and was appointed to deputy mayor in that position. It's been a real privilege to be a part of the leadership team in this state. I think we're all really proud of Colorado.
Yeah.
And I'm proud to have been a part of the team that's helped lay the foundation for the success that we're seeing here.
So just a superhuman question. When I think about running for governor or being involved in politics in any way, you have to put up with like the whole Twitterverse and, you know, the kind of trolling and like, why on earth would anyone decent want to be involved in politics these days?
I love your question. You know, for me, it's a privilege. I'm grateful every day to have the opportunity. And I actually think the Facebook Live and Twitter, it's helpful because people really get to know who we are. You know, we're public. I'm accountable to the public for the positions I'm going to take, for the leadership I'm going to provide in this state. So the opportunities that you provide to help me talk to people and
but do you just have a super thick skin with all the craziness on the internet?
You know, I love this state. I love to lead on the opportunities that we have in front of us. So I love the opportunity to be able to talk to large audiences, small audiences. I enjoy both of my statewide campaigns here for state treasurer, and I'm enjoying the campaign for governor even more.
Yeah, it seems like you are. That's amazing. So a lot of people would find it exhausting, but it's a privilege and you're enjoying it.
It's a privilege and it's energizing. You know, you have an opportunity to meet wonderful people all over this state. The people of Colorado are incredibly generous. They are so hardworking, and I'm struck by the lengths at which they will go to protect this beautiful state. They love it here. We're all here for a reason. We love Colorado, and what a privilege to be able to lead a wonderful state like Colorado.
Well, so let's talk about some of the issues in terms of Colorado. They're looking at 4 or 5 million people moving in the next whatever. You probably know exactly. Given the Trump administration's recent action with Bears Ears, what are we going to do in terms of handling that influx in affordability, open spaces? Yeah,
so that's one of my top issues on this campaign. I really came out early and talked about how I've watched Colorado's population double growing up here since I was a kid. And the forecasters are telling us that the state's population is going to double again. So, another 4 or 5 million people are going to move into our state. And we can't stop this growth. And we're a welcoming state. My family was welcomed here when I was a young child. My husband's family was welcomed here. I'm married to an immigrant. But we can be a lot smarter about how we manage this growth and how we handle it. And it's going to take strong leadership. We don't want Colorado to become the next California.
So speaking of doubling, I mean, real estate in Boulder it's like the average house is $1 million now. It's I don't think I've gone to more than one housewarming the last couple of years with anyone below the age of 40. Like, what are we doing? What can we do about affordability?
Yeah, so this is the issue that I hear about most on this campaign. Certainly here in Boulder, there are real challenges, but statewide, there are challenges with affordable housing. And what we're seeing is that people who've lived in communities for generations, they grew up there, they can't afford to stay there. People can't afford to live where they work. So that's why I have called for the state of Colorado to implement a statewide affordable housing fund. We are one of the few states in the country that doesn't have one. It's long overdue. The state needs to help support our local jurisdictions in financing the construction and preservation of affordable housing. I did some of this work while I was CFO of the city of Denver, helped start the first affordable housing fund there that's building affordable housing, and also developed about 250 units of supportive housing for people who are chronically homeless. We have a lot of work to do in this state. It's one of the real symptoms, I guess, of our rapid population growth, and it is going to take leadership from the governor to help make sure that people can live where they work.
So switching gears a little bit, the outgoing, in all senses of the word, governor of Colorado, Hickenlooper, was beloved in many ways. I remember seeing him give a speech at the Sustainable Living Fair, or whatever it's called, in Fort Collins. I don't think he'd be invited back because he's been such a kind of defender of fracking. So where are you on fracking, which is a concern that's coming into Boulder right now?
Yeah, so let me just say with respect to Governor Hickenlooper, I give him great credit for a lot of the economic success in this state.
Sure.
He has really helped work with some of leading edge, forward-looking, innovative companies all over the country to come here to Colorado. And when we look at the success of our economy, I just have to give him a shout out for that. But when it comes to
no one's saying he's a bad person, but in terms of fracking, he's largely seen as an advocate for it. You know, the city, the people of Longmont voted against it. He worked to overturn that.
Yeah, so we're out of balance right now. And, the challenge is people who are living and working in communities that are directly impacted by oil and gas development are afraid. Yeah. They're afraid that their water quality, their air quality, they have industrial operations that are taking place right out their back door. So there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of impacts on their lifestyle, on the value of their homes, right? So we're out of balance.
We don't have enough water as it is, and it's water intensive fracking.
We need to make sure that, and this has been I think a challenge at the state for a long time, but we absolutely have to make sure that the regulatory bodies that are regulating the energy industry are putting public health, safety, and welfare first. And they've not been doing that. And the law has been unsettled on this issue. And I came out early as a candidate for governor supporting a recent appellate court decision that held just that the regulators have to put public health, safety, and welfare first in regulating this development. We don't want to shut this industry down. It is an important component of Colorado's economy. It's an important industry to the energy security of our, of not just of our state, but of the nation. And so we don't want to shut the industry down. We want to make sure they can develop this resource. Colorado, is blessed with abundant resources, but it can't be developed in a way that people who are living close by are not feeling like their own health or safety or welfare is being protected. But that we have to do first. Yeah.
That would seem pretty basic for the government to protect people's
I was actually shocked when I read the opinion that this was even being litigated. And, I'll also say, I think there are areas in this state that are just too special to drill. Colorado, we want to pass to our kids and their kids. We want them to inherit the Colorado that we all love. And we have areas in this state that are so special that, we just need to make sure that they're protected. It is why, as a candidate, I've come out to conserve or preserve another 1 million acres in our state. And we need to protect our federal lands. We will not sell off our public lands for development or to the highest bidder. It is incumbent upon all of us to make sure that we provide the leadership to really protect everything we love about this state.
Yeah, and that's a huge driver economically as well. Tourism. I mean, Colorado's beloved. People come here and want to hike around.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a stewardship and really a moral responsibility to protect the land. I always say, as Westerners, our first love is the land. But it's also economic. We are the largest outdoor recreation economy in the country. Wow. And we need to make sure that we hold that position. And, we just brought the outdoor retailer trade show here to Colorado, and it's coming.
I'll be there.
Great, I'll be there too. Yeah, buy a new ski coat.
Yeah. That's a big win for us.
It is a big win, and they're coming here because they know state leaders are really committed to making sure that we protect our open space and our public lands and protect access to them as well. We watch what the federal government's doing, trying to raise these park fees. $70 for a car to get into Rocky Mountain National Park. That's not accessible. But we want all families to be able to enjoy the spectacular scenery that we have and opportunities to get outside and enjoy all that Colorado has to offer.
Yeah, it's our land, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess it's not ours, right? It's ours to protect.
Right. But I mean, it should be open to all Americans.
Yes, of course.
As long as we treat it well. So let's talk about Tabor. Maybe you could explain Tabor, and you've been really involved in terms of working with that and education. So what is Tabor? For those who are watching.
And I just want you to know, Waylon, I love the fact that you asked the question.
So
it's
been a bit
about almost 30 years ago, we had an out-of-state extreme agenda come into Colorado and put an amendment in our state constitution that has forced us to cut our investments in education, for now almost 30 years. It doesn't make any sense that we have the leading economy in the country right now, and our investment in education and K through 12, including higher education, ranks at the bottom among states.
At the very bottom?
We're close to the bottom.
Yeah, like 49 or something.
Yeah, we're about almost $3,000 per student below the national average. We've got half the school districts in the state of Colorado now running on a 4-day school week. Half of the districts in our state. That doesn't make any sense.
Because they can't afford to stay open for a
They can't afford to stay. Some of them went to a 4-day school week out of choice. The majority of those districts went to a 4-day school week because they couldn't. They had to find a way to cut their budget, and that was what they decided to do. We pay our teachers among the lowest salaries in the country.
And you're talking
this isn't what anybody in Colorado wanted. This is the effects of Tabor. When you look at the infrastructure in our state, I think most people agree it's not keeping pace with the demands of our growing economy. It's not keeping pace with our growing population. We need to make investments in transit and transportation. And we need to make investments in rural roads. It's water, water conservation, water efficiency. We've fallen behind. And we've fallen behind because of Tabor. As Colorado's economy has grown, Tabor has said, nope, you can't collect tax revenue off that growth, right? No, it has nothing to do with the keeping, this is keeping tax rates where they are. Can't keep the money that's generated off of real growth in the economy. So we've been digging ourselves into a hole. I am the only statewide elected official that has called for permanent Tabor reform my entire career. And I will lead on it as governor. We have Republican and Democratic support in the Capitol today to permanently fix those caps that are in Tabor, to let the state keep the revenue so that we can better fund our schools, our infrastructure. People know we need to make these investments if we're going to support the prosperity that we're seeing in our economy today into the future.
So why, and you've been working specifically on teacher salaries as well, why is education so important? It may sound like a dumb question, but a lot of us, we don't fund it.
Yeah, I think the people of Colorado value education, and I think the people of Colorado really want all of the kids who are growing up in our state to have to get one of the best educations in the country. You talk to people and they want all the kids in the state to be able to benefit and participate in the great economic success that we're having, in the knowledge-based economy that we're building. They do not want Colorado kids left out of that progress, and yet that is what's happening.
Right.
Because we have an inequitable and inadequately funded education system. I'll share with you, I grew up with 3 brothers and sisters who joined my family through the foster care program.
Wow.
And I have a sister who joined our family through her church. So I grew up with brothers and sisters that didn't have the opportunities that I had until they moved in with us. And I saw firsthand how important it is that kids get opportunities through their public schools. And, for the vast majority of kids growing up in our state, those are the only opportunities that they get. So it's my top priority as governor to make sure that, we build one of the top education systems in the country here. And Colorado can do it. We can lead on this in the same way we lead in so many areas.
So would that end Tabor or just amend it to the point where it's workable?
No, just amend it. We don't need to make drastic changes here. We're doing well. We do need to modify the formulas, the caps that are in Tabor that don't allow us to make investments from growth in our economy back into our schools, back into our infrastructure. That's the fix. And we've got bipartisan support for it. I will lead as governor to put that on the ballot and get it passed.
So you just mentioned a word that's an endangered species in the U.S. right now, bipartisan. How would you work with across the aisle?
So I have a long history of getting major programs and solutions through the Capitol, through the legislature, while I was state treasurer and even before that, building coalitions with Republicans and Democrats. And, I'll also say the success that we see here in Colorado, it's not just Democrats and Republicans, but it's where we build coalitions and partnerships with business, with industry, with our nonprofits, with our community organizations, with our universities, and everybody comes to the table and says, how do we tackle this problem? Let's work together and go forward. And whether that's protecting a watershed or whether that's building homeless housing, that's how you move an agenda forward. It's a very inclusive, broad-based, bottoms-up process with a lot of people involved. And a perfect example of that was when I was state treasurer. I led the effort to create a program that is rebuilding and renovating aging school buildings throughout Colorado. So you go into rural Colorado and kids are going to school in buildings that were built at the turn of the century. And not this century.
And not maintained.
Right there.
Well,
no, they're 100 plus, 70, 80, 100-year-old buildings. These buildings have lead pipes, they have asbestos, they have mold, they flood. I just toured a school down in Saguache, which is in the San Luis Valley, where you can't make this up, Waylon. The sewage backs into the classroom, and the teacher uses a purple plastic Rockies beer cup to plug the drain in the middle of the classroom to keep the sewage from flowing out. So these communities don't have the population, they don't have the tax base to renovate these old schools. So when I was the state treasurer, I created a program with bipartisan support. We had tremendous support in the House and the Senate, both sides of the aisle, as well as community leaders all over the state, that's put $1 billion into renovating these aging schools.
Nice.
So
Thank you.
381 schools around the state in places like Kim and Hooper and Mosca and Debec and Cotopaxi and Del Norte, where kids can now attend school in a modern facility and get the same quality of education that kids would get anywhere here in the state.
As someone also a fan of historic buildings, it's nice to hear you're hopefully in most cases renovating, not just tearing down and building big
where
boxes.
We can, we are. And the perfect example of that's the Silverton School. Silverton's that beautiful old historic mining town, and they had a 100-year-old school building, and we preserved that building, renovated it. The kids are still going to school there, and it's really neat if you get a chance to go visit it.
I'll check it out. So in terms of, there's a lot of current issues a lot of us would love to talk about coming out of the Trump administration, whether it's tax plan or net neutrality. Maybe you could touch on both of those since they're happening or just happened. Yeah,
first of all, let me just say, it is going to be strong governors around the country that stand up to the nonsense we see happening in Washington and continue to provide the leadership. And Colorado is in a perfect position to continue to lead, to be a model that the rest of the country can look towards. I'm given speeches at events a lot, and one of the lines that I always say is, I'm making a bumper sticker, what happens in Washington stays in Washington, right? So leadership has to come from the states, and whether it's on how we address this is just terrible fiscal policy. Since when did the Republican Party decide that adding $1 trillion
Yeah, 1.3
to the deficit is okay. They're supposed to be the party of fiscal responsibility. You know, we balance. I help balance the state's budget here throughout the economic crisis, and what they are doing back there, it's just irresponsible. Our kids are gonna shoulder that debt, and it's just so they can get a political win.
And it's not even going to rebuilding infrastructure, making America, more equitable.
Yeah.
It's kind of a handout.
Well, we know that the vast majority of the tax savings are going to accrue to the top 1% in the country, and we don't have any assurances that the rate, the cut in the corporate tax rates is actually going to translate into higher wages. And history tells us that it doesn't. It accrues to the shareholders, not to the workers. Mm-hmm. And so, I would like to see leadership in Washington really start to make good on the promises that they've been talking about, which is helping the middle class in this country, and that bill does not do it.
So net neutrality, why is that important, and what do we do now that we're losing it?
Well, it's important because, we're sitting here on Facebook Live, right? We want people to be able to see this. This is democracy.
Yeah.
We need people to be able to access the internet, and, it has become fundamental in our society. I know my teenagers, they check their grades online. We can't set up a structure where people are blocked from being able to access sites on the internet because their families can't afford to buy some more expensive package. And, in this case, I've got to applaud my opponent, Congressman Polis, who I know has been out there fighting for net neutrality. And it's a shame to see us lose this.
So let's talk about the race itself. You mentioned Congressman Polis, so he's a longtime friend of Elephant. I've interviewed him a bunch of times. What's the landscape of the race for you?
So I'm in a great position to win this. I am the strongest candidate to win the general election for the Democrats here in Colorado. I am the only candidate in this race that has served in a major constitutional office. I ran statewide twice, unseated an incumbent Republican to win that seat. And I've been working in communities around Colorado for decades. So like I said, when I travel into rural Colorado, into these small communities, they know me. Because I was the statewide elected official, I was the person from Denver who showed up and who heard about what their biggest challenge, their biggest barrier to economic development, what they needed, and helped get the legislation through and address their challenges. And having been a part of the leadership team here in the Capitol for a long time, people are proud of Colorado. They see Colorado as good government, as doing it right. And that is the leadership that I've helped provide there. And that's the leadership that I will continue as governor. And there isn't anybody else in the race that brings the history of executive management, financial management experience, balancing the budget helping balance the budget through the economic crisis, managing the state's investments throughout the economic crisis. Nobody else brings that experience to this race, and it's important.
Sure. I'm sure they would say they have other experiences that would be helpful. One thing that is helpful for Congressman Polis particularly is our campaign finance laws are quite tight, as they should be, about individual donations, but there's really no regulation at all if you're self-funding. How do you run against an avalanche of money?
I know, and I will just say, I hope we never get to the point in this country where the only people who can win elected office are millionaires and billionaires who self-fund their campaigns. Our campaign finance system in this country is broken.
Right.
It is hurting our democracy, and I think we're all really concerned about it.
Yeah.
That said, I can win this race. I don't need to raise or spend more money than anybody else. I need to raise enough money to fund a strong statewide campaign and reach primary voters, and I will win this.
And in positive developments, since Howard Dean, I think, might have been the first, but Trump himself and Bernie Sanders and Hillary and many candidates since, the internet has enabled small donations.
Yes.
So
Yes, so if you're watching, please carrykennedyforgovernor.com. Small donors that you guys fuel this campaign.
Yeah. And that's an issue important to us and our readers is sort of, it's a democracy, so anyone should be able to run and at least compete, on their own merits.
I completely agree. And we counted them. There are 5 candidates running for governor in Colorado who are self-funding their campaigns.
On both sides.
On both sides of the aisle. Yeah.
Right.
And, I sort of joke, my husband and I are self-funding our kids' college. We are not self-funding our campaign.
And that's an
so I'm raising money from
Yeah.
supporters to support this campaign. But, that outreach and that voter contact and getting people engaged in a campaign, it's how you win an election.
Sure. And knocking on doors and all
Absolutely.
that. Yeah. So just to be clear about that, what's the max donation for an individual?
So in the Colorado governor's race, it's $575 for the primary election, $575 for the general election, so it's $1,150. And I can actually receive all of it now from any individual who can give the full amount now.
And then, but if I'm a, multimillionaire or billionaire, what's the max that I can do?
There is no limit.
Yeah. So it's like a super highway if you're wealthy, funding wise, and it's like a little, kind of side road for the rest of us.
Yeah, which is why you're seeing so many people run for office who are independently wealthy.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, anything else you want to touch on? Any other issues important to you that I haven't asked about?
The one piece that we haven't talked about is healthcare, and I'll just mention I came out with a healthcare proposal. I'm the only candidate in the race that has proposed offering a public health insurance buy-in option for everyone here in Colorado. I hear about this all over the state. We face some of the highest healthcare costs in the country. And this is a step that we can take without waiting for Washington to give people another option in the market that is more affordable and past the savings that the state realizes by having such a large pool in the Medicaid program, pass those savings on to everybody else. So my top 3 issues are public education. We should be leading the country, keeping healthcare accessible and affordable, and making sure that we manage growth in a way that protects the state that we love.
Great issues. What's one area specifically where you feel like you really, all the candidates on your side of the fence, particularly Democratic candidates, agree on, like Jared or Mike or whoever?
Yeah, my guess is you'll see us agree on a lot.
Yeah.
We share a lot of the same values. I have tremendous respect for the folks who are in this race.
Yeah.
There are a lot of good people.
Yeah.
So, I think you'll see a lot of the candidates talking about Colorado should be a leader in education, that we can do so much more there. You're going to see a lot of the candidates talking about healthcare. You're going to see a lot of candidates talking about standing up to President Trump and making sure that we protect this state and we don't let those regressive policies take Colorado backwards.
Well, thank you, Carrie. It's an honor.
So much fun. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. We can scan real quick, see if there's some questions. Did you notice any questions that are great? Someone talking about Tabor. All right, we're good. Thank you, everyone.